I've been wrestling with a conversation I wanted to have with anyone out in the universe about why I stopped traveling and speaking as much. I still do, but I don't do it a lot. I pray about it. I talk it over with my husband and make sure he feels at peace. We try to make it so he can come or one of my kids can come. But there are three reasons why I stopped. Reason number one is I could not find a biblical reason for being away from my husband that often. Now, I didn't go for long stretches of time. I went about 1 to 2 times a month, and they were typically very short overnight, maybe 2-night trips. But I even still felt that was too much. So I didn't feel like that's where God called me. He did not call me to travel around while my husband's at home. So that's one. I could not find a biblical reason for leaving my children that much. Again, even though they were short. But I felt like every scripture I read wants me home with them. So those were the two main reasons. And that was a hard decision because I really enjoyed traveling. I really enjoyed connecting and building community around this whole topic of classical education, especially diverse classical education. But I had to make a choice. And so I felt like it would be wisest for me to stop it as much as I can, to travel occasionally, but making sure it did not interfere with the work I'm doing at the Living Water School and the work I'm doing at Johns Hopkins, and most importantly, my place at home. Now, this was a hard decision, and but something helped me make it, and something helped me know what events I should say no to, and what events I should say yes to. When I was speaking a lot, sometimes 1 to 2 times a month, I was saying yes to everything. I was just so excited to be able to share about this passion that I had researched about. When I was working on my doctorate around this topic, my research was not received very well. So just the interest in the topic after laying dormant for several years was exciting. And to meet people who were interested in this, it was exciting. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about popularity. It was really about sharing the message. And so during the pandemic, I guess, or a little before the pandemic, I started traveling to speak all throughout the United States at different conferences on this topic on classical education in diverse communities. And as I came to this conclusion that I should not travel, I needed a guide to help me know when to say no, what to say no to, and when was God really calling me to travel to share this message he had given to me. And this is what helped me. I did like kind of a reflection on my experiences. And I chose not to no longer attend, support, promote events, conferences, organizations that related to me in the following ways. Number one, if the place if I could verify that the place was paying me less than others who were doing the same thing. We speakers talk, y'all. Hello. Then I did not return because with my degree, with my background, with the research, what I was bringing, having authored 2 books, written several articles, I could look at these people who may not have had the same. I've started a school. I'm working at major universities. My resume was either comparable or was at least comparable to others. So I felt like I should at least be paid the same. The other reason why pay is important is because I often found too that because these places wanted me to come and share but didn't really want to pay, I often would go into debt to go. even if they covered the ticket in the hotel, by the time I got babysitters taken care of, it was just very expensive to go. And so with the pay they were giving me, I wasn't really earning anything, and sometimes going into debt just to be there. And they weren't really willing to compensate me for my time. So that was one thing. And this was just reflection and just trying to get a sense of things. The other thing is I also would kind of observe the way these leaders at these places, and I'm purposely not naming any names, but I'm hoping that what I'm sharing just allows for pause and reflection. I'm not going to be judgmental and say this was done intentionally. I think I'm going to choose to believe the best and say it was an unconscious thing, but it really is important for us to become more conscious on how we relate to people of color and the discrepancies there. The second thing is that oftentimes I would be invited to speak. There's this one conference in particular where repeatedly, every time they asked me to speak, they never let me be on stage without the presence of a white male. They would be smiling, very warm, would take you out to dinner, even acted like they were friends and supporters of the work you're doing. But I noticed every single time, the only time I was allowed to speak is if I was being interviewed. Like sometimes on the main stage in the plenary sessions, you sit on the stage and they do like an interview. They would only allow me on the stage for that interview. And it was always an interview by a white male every year. But I knew that, and I'd seen that white people, and every now and then a black male could speak without that supervision. When I analyzed that very closely, I made a decision not to support that organization anymore, not to speak there, not to participate, not to promote or support. Now, the final straw for me was that same organization. I did a test, and the test I wasn't trying to trap anyone. It was my hope that I was just misunderstanding, and it was just kind of a coincidence, because I really want to believe the best about people. I was asked to be a part of a panel that was going to be led by a white male. And this is not an indictment on anyone who participated. Please don't take it like that. But I do struggle with those who organized this event, or not organized the event, but organized who were the leaders of the organization. But what I did was I was set to be on a panel again, another year of only being allowed to have a speaking moment if I'm overseen by a white male. But I submitted a proposal to lead a class, a workshop. And I was told to email it directly to the leader. And he never responded. And so that let me know that they did not value me as a person, and that it would not be wise for me to use my time. That was not a safe space for me. The final thing that helped me decide what would be the healthiest places for me to be was, did the place see me as a person who knew more than about Black issues? And were they willing to not place me only in that segregated space? Now, I don't mind talking about Black history and Black issues and history of Black education, all that. I want to go speak about that. But I know more than that. I have worked in public schools. I was a team leader in public schools. I have been educational leader as a principal, director of education in Christian schools, private schools. I have worked in charter schools. I have 3 masters and a PhD, all in education. I have supervised student teachers for major universities. I have written, I have researched, and I started a school from scratch without any help that has been alive and well for 9 years. I am the daughter of those who founded a school that lasted 10 years. And so I feel like I have a lot of expertise to talk about education more than just what's going on in the Black community. And so there were some spaces that would only let me speak. Watch this. They would only let me speak if I were being interviewed by a white male. And usually that moment was at an event that happens before the full conference happens. Like, I was not allowed to participate in the main conference, to be considered a speaker in the main conference, to even just lead a workshop or a class during the main conference. I was segregated to a certain space under the supervision of a white male, and this happened year after year after year. And it doesn't matter that maybe some Black people spoke here and there, and it doesn't matter that a Black, sometimes there might be a Black person on the stage. It was always a Black male. All I know is that there was some inequity there with regards to me. And I have more patience for people who just say, I'm not interested in talking about diversity, and they're upfront about that. They don't hide that. They're very, upfront about that. I have more respect for that genuineness than someone who smiles and seems to be supportive and seems to say nice things, but still relates to you in this subtle way as if you're less than everyone else. And that was hard for me because I really wanted to have a strong connection with the classical education community. But I felt like God was really speaking to me about making sure that where I am investing my time and where I'm placing my energy and where I'm sharing my research and the work that He has given to me are in spaces that are healthy, that really demonstrate they sincerely want to bring racial healing from a biblical perspective in the space. I also don't speak at places that have non-biblical perspectives on racial healing. I don't, or as main speakers. Like I will only go into those spaces if I'm allowed to share the perspectives, the biblical perspectives God has given to me. But if you can tell, I try to be very careful about being in really political spaces on either side, spaces that are hurtful to either side. I try to stay in this very neutral space. And my goal is to try to bring people together. But and when I use that as a guide for knowing where to spend my time, it helped to really shape my growth as a speaker. It really helped to shape my growth as a consultant and a supporter and an advocate for authentic classical education. And when I say that, authentic classical education, I'm not talking about the classical education that started in the 1900s. I'm talking about the one that I believe was Anna Julia Cooper says that was here before the pharaohs, where we all talk about the works of those who came before us, and we bring that in conversation with our lives, and we teach our children to do that, and we really do embrace the Western tradition, not because it's white, but it's actually more Mediterranean a lot of times, but for lack of a better way to describe it so everyone knows what I'm talking about. We embrace it not because we prefer white literature, but we embrace it because it has influenced all other literature that inspires us. From Martin Luther King to the Black Panthers to even Ta-Nehisi Coates. So that is why, because it's such a part of our human conversation. And so I want to pass that literacy on to all children. But I cannot do that by supporting organizations that still have work to do with how they relate to people of color.